Should have muted your devices.
How do we get these?
I'm waiting for. I just invited candidates.
City council
Okay,
meeting.
we are on. Mayor, are you ready?
All right, let's go ahead and get going at 6 o'clock. This is going to be a city council meeting night for the city of Lake Stevens. It is November 8th, 2022 at 6 p.m. This is going to be, I think we're all here. That's wonderful. So we are all in person. There will be participation possible from online through Zoom. And this meeting is recorded and will be posted on our city YouTube site shortly after the meeting. So with that, I would ask all to rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Challen, can you give us a roll call, please?
Councilmember Daughtry.
Present.
Councilmember Peterson.
Present.
Councilmember Frederick.
Present.
Councilmember Dickinson.
Present.
Councilmember Georgetown.
Present.
Councilmember Ewing.
Present.
Councilmember Hodges.
Present.
Excellent. Council President, can you give us an agenda, please?
Yes, any additions or amendments to the agenda?
Yes, I would like to ask item G in the consent agenda to be moved to next week's meeting. I have a couple of questions in regards to that, and it specifically relates to the sewer district.
Okay.
That was item G.
G as in, yes, item G.
Just,
You want to put that on next week's agenda?
Yeah, that'd be great. I have some questions.
Okay, so let's just, okay,
So,
do you have a second on that?
second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So motion passes, so item G is removed and will be on for next week. Any other adjustments to the agenda?
move to approve the agenda as amended.
Okay,
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Mayor, you have an agenda.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And let's move forward to guest business director Garceau.
I'll ask Jessica to join me. We are introducing one of my new employees. Although we say new, Jessica has actually been with us now just about 2.5 months. She started, I think, in my first week. We just haven't gotten around to being here. So formally, Jessica Romero joined the best department in the city, Parks and Recreation, and she is your new recreation specialist. She comes to us with 15 years experience working as a certified therapeutic recreation specialist and community recreation coordinator for the city of Seattle, Seattle's Children's Hospital. And most recently, she also worked for North Shore School District. There will not be a quiz on that later. She is a graduate from Western Washington University with a major in therapeutic recreation programming and recreation management. She has always been passionate about recreation and creating quality of life for disadvantaged populations. She has been involved in Special Olympics for the past 10 years, coaching swimming, bowling, and track and field. She believes that giving youth safe recreational opportunities will help develop social, physical, and emotional skills and guide them to be future leaders in their own communities. Her favorite parts about working in the recreation field are interacting with diverse populations, creating community partnerships, planning special events, and working with a team of creative thinkers. In her free time, she enjoys tending to her garden, boating, and swimming at her cabin in Lake Chelan. Is it Chelan? Chelan. I need to get used to all the pronunciations. I apologize. Sporting events with her children and cuddling with her 3 cats. Moving from Seattle to the Snohomish area has been a welcome change of pace. Living and working in the same community brings a sense of ownership and pride as she is excited to be part of the Lake Stevens community. Anytime you wish to share a Diet Coke and a vision for the future of Lake Stevens recreation programming, don't hesitate to reach out. Welcome, Jessica.
All right, Thank you for being here. And anytime we are up in Lake Sheelan, we'll share a Diet Coke.
I'll be going to Sheelan from Peoria.
Are you?
Peoria.
Yeah. Koala. Okay. All right, so with that, let's move forward to citizens' comments. The way we do citizens' comments is we ask for anyone here in the audience who has a green sheet, we'll recognize you for citizens' comments. And if you're online, if you'll raise your hand and be digitally recognized, we will bring you into the panel and you can have 3 minutes for citizens' comments to address the city council. Clerk Shellen, is there anyone online?
I do not see anybody online. So just again, to remind folks online, raise your digital hand if you want to speak, and I will let you into the meeting.
Anybody?
Not seeing anybody.
Okay, so let's move to those that are in person here. And I just want to clarify a couple of things. Loretta, do you wish to speak about the budget during the budget public hearing? Okay, so I have you down as speaking, wanting to address the new property tax, which would fall under the public hearing B. Is that where you want to go? Okay.
Yeah.
Is that right, Loretta?
It's there now.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Where do I comment?
Right, so it won't be during citizens' comments, it'll be during the citizens' comments of the public hearing is where that would be appropriate. I just want to make sure that you're okay with that.
That's fine.
Okay, perfect. So then with that, I have Shane Oden. You could hit the mic, 3 minutes.
Mayor, did you want the city attorney to address the closed record appeal hearing before
Yeah.
citizen comments?
Shane, would you hold 1 second for me?
Okay.
You can hang out up there, but.
I'm just
1
not sure.
second.
Why don't we do that?
Yeah. Okay, I just didn't know if anybody would speak about that at this point.
So the only one I have right now
Yeah.
with general comments is Shane.
Okay, I apologize. Go ahead.
Okay, go ahead, Shane.
Sorry, Shane, go ahead.
Mic'd up, kind of, sort of. Shane Oden, Lake Stevens resident, 3210 Catherine Drive. Before I get what I came here about tonight, I just wanted to ask a couple other questions, rhetorical, of course. Notice on the Marysville, City of Marysville's Facebook page, Waste Management is offering a service to help folks that have been impacted by the last weather storm and getting rid of like spoiled foods, and they're allowing pickup of more garbage. So my question is does our contract allow that? Is that service available? I know a lot of people that like to benefit from that service. If it is, if that's information we get out, that would be great. The other comment I had just came to my attention today. I got some photos of a large swath along Parkford Road where it wasn't like trees uprooting, but the entire stream bank like completely upheaved for like a 30-40 foot section. Ironically, this is the area where the city was doing what they were calling invasive plant removal along the stream banks, but they were actually excavating away the sides of the stream banks. Last year, they were dredging it. These are the kinds of things that kind of activity can lead to. And I think it's important. So, I mean, there's photos, there's videos that have taken place this summer and last year. That's probably something I think that the property owner that the tree's house fell on should probably be aware of. Somebody should, be a little transparent about that. The reason I came here tonight, the main reason was I was kind of, well, I guess I wasn't so surprised about the attention that the city not getting being available for ADA funding temporarily due to ADA violations and a letter from the state. I guess what kind of shocked me about the whole thing was council's kind of like, what's going on? Why are we, this has been going on since 2018 when your own city employees notified you. There's an investigation that was headed up by Eugene. And that's when it was first mentioned back in 2018 when ramps were removed from an overlay, like, I don't know, probably close to a dozen of them. So since then, the complaints have continued to come in. There has been a large group of us that have been voicing our concerns. I talked with a lot of folks running for council, Brett, when you were running for mayor, that this was one of many things that, just was being overlooked at the city, things that were being withheld from projects. And I warned you guys what this could potentially lead to, amongst a number of other things. And I think you took some not so good advice, respectfully, from whether it was Gene or your city attorney or you, Brett, telling members of the public to don't bother coming to council, go to the agencies. Well, that was the last thing anybody wanted, because look at where we're at. So there were some comments and questions that were raised, and I'll take my 3 minutes to do the best I can to address them. The first one that came up was by you, Mr. Peter Sagan. You said, are there any wheelchair ramps adjacent? Are these wheelchair ramps adjacent to washout?
Hey, Shane, you
Yeah.
got 10 seconds to wrap up those 3 minutes.
Okay, fair enough. Send you my comments and my questions via email. I kind of ate up my time. But I would like to see y'all do a little better in addressing. This seems like a really big deal. And I would like to see a little more transparency on the issue because it's pretty serious. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments, Shane. I don't have any others for the general comment session. So let's move forward to council business. Does anyone at council, I'm sorry.
Councilmember Paget.
I'm going to skip it just in the order
Okay.
of time.
Just really briefly, we had our monthly Board of Health meeting today. As many of you know, the county is in the process of assuming the health district. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but we talked a bit about what the board structure will look like next year. That'll be relevant to each city that appoints folks to the board. The county will be putting together a board based on the state RCWs. The health district will still need to have a board to do some of the wrapping up of the work of the district. That will likely take a year or so. I'll keep this group apprised as to what those structures will look like and what our role might look like. Thanks.
Councilmember Dickinson.
Yes, first of all, I did go to the Historic Society last week. Seems like a year ago. But yes, last week. And it was fascinating because a young man named Alex Iverson, who is coach of the basketball team at Lake Stevens High School, and he wants to get involved with the Historic Society. And I think that would be a beautiful combination. We talked a lot about what else is going on, and here's some happy news. And I will make it public. And that is that I spoke with Mr. Halverson today, and we will be able to get connectivity at the Grimm House, which means that they can use the Grimm House for connecting with the human beings that might be out here at North Cove. And I think that would be fabulous. So fingers crossed it all happens. And thank you very much, Mr. Halverson, for responding to my call. And I also went to the school board meeting and last week. They seem to have them every week. And it was at Lake Stevens Middle School, and it was really fun to see what an exciting place. And we met in the library. That's where the meeting was. And it was just fabulous to see that they use that library to make everybody feel welcome at Lake Stevens Middle School. They're some of my favorite meetings with school boards when they go out to the schools proper. We're very fortunate to have that school system. Yes, we are. Okay, I'm done.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Frederick.
I only have one announcement. I had a conversation with the mayor over the weekend and a brief exchange with staff earlier today. I will be resigning my position on city council effective December 16th. That is due to me accepting employment that will require me to relocate and thereby making me ineligible to continue on city council.
So we don't get a vote on this?
That's not council business.
I'm sorry.
That's not council business we want to hear.
Well, it kind of is in 90 days.
Yes.
Right. Kind of put it up and vote.
I like that idea. Let's vote.
Yeah, let's vote.
Let's make a motion.
All right. So we don't have to accept the resignation. Right?
I don't, yeah, right, we don't have to.
Yes.
but-
All right. Thank you, Sean. Did you have anything else you wanted to? No. Okay. Councilmember Peter Shaker.
Yeah, just quickly follow up on Councilmember Dixon's comments at the Historical Society. We got a new basketball coach that is very energetic and is looking to incorporate the alumni and doing some things here this next year to bridge the gap, I guess you might say, with the alumni and the new students and things of that sort, showing the history of the basketball program at Lake Stevens. So it's good to see. Also attended Planning Commission last week, and the comprehensive plan amendments will be coming to us, I believe, in December. There was lots of discussion about the Chapel Hill property as well as the property over, I believe Lake Stevens Brewing Company is proposing for comp plan amendment. So that'll be coming forth here shortly. So
Thank you. Councilmember Daughtry.
I have nothing to share tonight.
I also participated in the health board meeting, and for those of you who don't know, Councilmember Jorstad is the vice chair of the Snohomish County Health District. So just want to recognize her efforts to help with health district and the transition, and also with the budget for this coming year. That's above and beyond her regular duty. So thank you, Councilmember Jorstad, for your efforts there.
Thank you.
That's it for me.
All right, great. I'm going to keep it short as well. The only thing I have is a rescinding, it's a proclamation, I'm not going to read it, rescinding the emergency order that I put in place on 5th of March 2020 in response to the governor's emergency order reference to the outbreak of COVID. So I'm going to rescind that with that proclamation, and we can go back to our normal lives and continue to go to the grocery store not on your allotted day. So with that, that will be rescinded. Aaron, did you have something for a public department? Okay.
Sorry, Mayor.
Are you upset that you got?
No,
that you
no,
can
I just-
that you can go any day now?
My Tuesday, Thursday shopping trips are
Right, yeah.
now disrupted.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Okay, I have a Mayor and Council, I have a department report. For those in the audience, my name is Aaron Halverson. I'm the city's Public Works Director. I want to give you a brief update on the use of the Department of Corrections work crews. It's in your council packet, but you can see that they've worked 1,730 hours over the period between August and September, August 2021 and September 2022. There were 2 months where they did not work, January and February. We did have some inclement weather at the time, and it could be attributed to that. The city uses DOC crews primarily in our parks to do landscape maintenance and to do roadside vegetation management, clear out stormwater ponds, and they also do some janitorial work in the Public Works shop. So my goal with this report was to respond to a request from the council regarding the use of DOC crews. And I hope that satisfies the request. Any questions on that?
Thank you.
Yep. I would say the value is good. $4,500 for all of that work is pretty solid. Okay, the second part of this department report is the ADA compliance update. The city continues to work on its transition plan using the consultant Transpo Group. We are looking at every facility in the city, sidewalks, curb ramps, the library building that we own, this facility, programs, parks, and so forth. And the goal of that ADA transition plan is to identify deficiencies and prioritize efforts to correct them. We know we have many of them, likely thousands of them. So we need a plan to address them. That's the goal. Again, we expect that plan to be completed at the end of March next year, 2022. Excuse me, 2023. Thanks, Chief. It holds me accountable. There's also a website, ADA transition plan website, where residents and folks that use our facilities can file a grievance if they have an ADA concern or complaint, or they can request an accommodation and they can learn more about our transition planning efforts. And lastly, the city is going to perform a survey in the next few weeks, and we're going to try to gather some data. We're going to try to find those deficiencies and let the people that are using the facilities tell us where we're deficient. I think that's going to be a really valuable exercise, and it will give us some criteria to establish priority projects to address the issues that we find in the transition plan. Any questions on that?
I just have one quick question. In our packet, it shows the first 3 questions of the survey. Is there a way for us to preview the survey in its entirety?
Absolutely.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll share it with the council.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, let's move forward then. Thank you, Aaron. Can I get a motion to pass the consent agenda, and just remember that we took off item G.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. And let's go to public hearing, storage facilities code amendment. Taylor.
We're actually going to have Jill lead this presentation.
Okay.
So we're doing so remotely.
Good evening, everybody. I know we have a pretty packed agenda tonight, so I'm going to be as brief as possible. Tonight, we are back for the public hearing for storage facilities code amendment that we've been working on the last couple months. And with the conclusion of this presentation and the council discussion, we will welcome any public feedback. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here and have a brief presentation. So first, we introduced this code amendment this summer. We held 2 briefings with the council before this, and then when we brought it back to council in September, some council members brought up some very good points, and we have tried our best to incorporate those into the draft ordinance. So in response, we made an effort to deprioritize those standalone facilities and then provide a greater incentive for the mixed-use storage facilities. So the proposed ordinance does classify storage facilities into 3 different categories. There's standalone, horizontal mixed use, and then vertical mixed use. The standalone would be like the StoreQuest or clock tower facilities that are existing, and they don't include anything else on the site. So the horizontal mixed use would be contain a mix of storage use and at least one non-storage use in kind of a side-by-side configuration or strip mall configuration. And then finally, the vertical mixed use would be similar to like a mixed use residential building, but instead of apartments or condos on the top, you'd have storage units. So to address the comments from the council last time, we added some definitions to accessory use in sites. We also created a hierarchy of site configurations in order of preference, going from vertical mixed use being the most preferred, and then the standalone being more of the least preferred. And then it's also important to note that the standalone facilities would no longer be allowed within the commercial district and the local business zone. So for the vertical mixed use projects, the maximum floor area that could be dedicated to storage would be 70%. And for the horizontal mixed use, the maximum gross site area that could be taken up by storage would be 50%. So here's just kind of a snapshot of our adoption timeline. We issued the notice of public hearing last month for this public hearing today. And we also sent the notice to Washington Department of Commerce as we are required, and then issued a SEPA categorical exemption back in September. Consistency with the land use element and the comprehensive plan is discussed within the staff report. And most importantly, the Planning Commission did vote unanimously, I believe, to recommend the amendment as written for council approval at their October 5th public hearing. So before we move on to the discussion component, are there any questions about the revisions or the adoption process? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and hand it back off to the council.
Okay, so with that, do we have any questions for staff? And hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and open up the floor for public comments on this subject, the storage facilities code amendments. Is there anyone in the public or online who wishes to provide comments for this subject only? Anyone online?
I do not see anybody. Again, anybody online to raise your digital hand if you want to speak on the storage facilities code amendment. I'm not seeing anybody.
Okay, and have anybody in the audience either. So with that, we'll go ahead and close public comments portion of the hearing. And is there any further comment by staff?
I have, my staff. Does that include us?
You're not staff, you're a councilman.
Thank you. I'm gonna wait then.
We have procedures. Jill, do you have anything further for us? Okay, hearing nothing. Are there any further questions for staff by council members?
I don't have a question, just a comment.
I love a comment.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. I've said this before, so it's not a surprise. I continue to feel really strongly that standalone storage units are incompatible with our goals as a city, incompatible with our comprehensive plan, incompatible with our need to increase housing and employment opportunities within our city. So I will be voting no this evening based on that reason.
Any other discussion, deliberation? Okay. Hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and look for an action from the council.
Move to approve ordinance number 1147.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion to approve ordinance 1147 and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Yeah, hearing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Councilmember Daughtry.
Aye.
Councilmember Peter Sagan.
Aye.
Councilmember Frederick.
Aye.
Councilmember Dickinson.
No.
Councilmember Jorstad.
No.
Councilmember Ewing.
Yes.
Councilmember Tajin.
Aye.
Passes 5-2.
Okay, with that, motion passes. Thank you for your work, staff, on that. Let's move forward to 11B, ordinance 1149, 2023 property tax levy. Barb.
Okay, so we are going to look at our 2023 property tax public hearing today. We're going to go through the property tax limitations. I know this is, we've gone over these every year, what our limitations are. There are a number of them. We'll look at the assessed value and the limit factor, what the property tax levy is for 2023 proposed, and the property tax levy breakdown by taxing district. And then we'll look at the tax levy rate comparison for 22 and 23. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of property tax limitations, statutory dollar rate. This is the maximum that set by statute that we can assess. It does depend on how many districts we are annexed into. The city of Lake Stevens, we are annexed into the fire district and the library district, so they get a portion of the total that we are allowed. So the max the city can assess is $1.60 per 1,000 of assessed value. The levy limit is either 1%, 101%, or the implicit price deflator. The current implicit price deflator is over 1%. It's actually 6.457%. So the levy limit is 1% increase over the highest lawful levy from the prior year. So as you see, I have highlighted our assessed values in the city of Lake Stevens increased an average of 43.5% from the prior year. So the levy limit factor, as I mentioned, for 2023 is 101%, highest lawful levy. So that means we don't need an ordinance declaring a substantial need. The majority of the increase is from new construction and annexation, which increases the overall assessed value. So the 2023 estimated levy for property taxes is $6,407,000. That is including that 1% increase over our highest lawful levy from the prior year, which was 5.5 million, bringing our levy rate to 73.56 cents per 1,000 assessed value. And I mentioned in here, our new construction amount was $141,000. That is from all the new housing in our city, and then the annexation. So the annexation was actually from the annexation done in 2021. It was done in August, so it was late in the year, and so it was not captured for the assessed value for the 2022 levies. So we did take on services in the annex area, so roads, streets, surface water, police, and parks in those areas, but weren't receiving any of the annexation funds. Those are still going to the county at that point. So this year we'll actually capture those assessed values for the annexation. So we still do have the allocation to the general fund of 72% and the street fund of 28%. As we mentioned, we've been taking over all of the police activity and the streets, and that's where those funding actually gets separated. So the overall approximate increase is 15% overall. And that, like I mentioned, annexation was the largest portion of that. So this is looking at the property tax levy breakdown. As you can see in that first box, total 2022 tax levy, the city of Lake Stevens portion of the $9.83 was 92 cents. Looking at that, the rate was 9.157 for a total assessed value on a $500,000 home of $457.86 for the city portion. In 2023, with the example increase of the 43.5%, obviously not all houses increase that much. Some don't increase as much, some increase more. Looking at that average 43.5%, the levy rate goes down to 73 cents. And then looking at the 2023 assessed value of that $500,000 home, you're looking at $710,000 with a levy of $522.31. So an increase of $64.45 over 2022, or nearly $13 per 100,000 of assessed value. Again, this is the city portion of the sales of the property tax. It doesn't include the library district or the school district or any additional levies proposed or passed by the citizens. So this is just looking at your 2022 to 2023 comparison. As I mentioned, if you look on the second row, there's your $500,000 house, $457.86 to the city in 2022. In 2023, if that increased that 42.5%, it would be $522.31. The difference is $64.45 for the city portion of the property tax. And now we'll open for public comment or.
Okay, great. Do we have any questions for Barb from the council? Okay, hearing none, I'm gonna open up the floor for public comments. And I have two folks who do want to provide public comments on this. First will be Annette Gamble. Annette, if you could approach the microphone, say your name and your address for me, and then you'll have 3 minutes.
Annette Gamble Olson, 17209 123rd Avenue Northeast in Arlington. My mother lives in Lake Stevens. While I was holding signs announcing this meeting outside, I got several comments about the levy and increasing property taxes. And several of them said, oh, they're gonna tax seniors out of their property. So that was the comment I heard from a number of people while I was outside this morning.
Okay. And then I have Loretta Cussy. Okay. Yeah, if you could approach the microphone, name and address, please.
My name's Loretta Cussy, 11916 Machias Cutoff Road, Lake Stevens. And I'm just asking, I don't know, try to be conservative with your money and not raise taxes. I don't know who lives in a $500,000 home, but that's kind of a cabin. Assessed value is just over the top, and everybody's already struggling, to make ends meet, just buy food and everything else. So I'm just asking to be conservative, like I try to be conservative with my own money. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no one else further for this one, so I'm going to close the public comments portion of this hearing. And is there any further comments?
Should I check online again? Just
Yeah. check online.
Okay, online, if you would like to speak to the ordinance 1149 on the 2023 property tax levy, please raise your hand in Zoom so I can let you into the meeting. I am not seeing.
Okay. So with that, I'll keep the public comments portion of the hearing closed. And is there any further comment by staff? Nothing? Any questions for staff or deliberation of the council? Seeing no questions, nor am I seeing deliberation. I see a ponderous thought. Okay, and with that, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing and look for an action on the council. You can either approve it, deny it, or continue.
I move that we approve ordinance 1149, the 2023 property tax levy.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the property tax levy. Is there any discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? Okay, motion passes. And with that, we'll move forward to public hearing 11C, which is the 2023 budget ordinance 1150 bar.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go into the public hearing number 1 for the 2023 budget. This is the first of 2 required public hearings. As we've discussed, the 2023 budget priorities are maintain public health and safety. We're doing this by attaining the American Public Works Association accreditation, enhancing transportation program, enhancing the park and recreation program, completing capital projects already in process. And we're also looking to streamline city processes to increase our levels of service and working to attract and retain highly qualified staff. Looking at this, this is a snapshot of the ordinance, which includes all of our budgeted funds. So as a city, we budget by fund, not by department. We look at here our total revenues, total expenditures grouped by fund type. We have the general funds, which include your managerial permit fund, your pandemic recovery funds, and your general reserve fund. In the general fund, you have your administration, your police, your planning and community development, and parks. The next major fund source is the street fund, the next one down. Obviously, you have special revenue funds. Your street is the main one there. You have your debt service funds, just paying debt. You have your capital project funds, which are the 300 funds. That's all of your REAP, traffic mitigation, park mitigation. Your proprietary funds, those are the ones that pay for themselves. So that's the stormwater and surface water funds. And then the sewer, which we do still have a sewer fund. We pay debt and we receive reimbursement from the sewer district for that debt on their behalf. And then our internal service funds, which is where we put money so that we could actually look at buying equipment and doing our fleet service programs, that type of thing. So we save money for the future projects. This is just a look at those funds summarized. So our general fund, we are looking to spend $22.4 million in 2023. Special revenue funds, again, the major is the street fund. Debt service, we have about 1.4 million in debt service that we'll be paying out this year. And then our capital funds, we have about 6.9 million in capital projects for 2020. This is just looking at a citywide revenue breakdown by type. As you can see, taxes is our largest portion of revenues. It makes up 50% of our citywide revenues. That includes your property tax, sales tax, real estate excise tax, and utility taxes. Next, we have our charges for services, which includes our zoning and subdivision land use fees, park and traffic impact fees, and then the stormwater fees. And then our intergovernmental, that's grants and state share funds, which is like liquor tax, liquor board profits, marijuana tax, some of the DUI state shared funding we receive. And then license and permits, the largest portion of that is in building permits, which is in the managerial permit fund. So looking at just the taxes, obviously, since that is our largest portion of revenues, the largest portion of that is actually sales tax, which is a change in the last few years. We were always heavier in property tax. Now property tax is 32% of the total and sales tax is actually 33%. And then we have our utility tax, which is the rust color, that's at 14%. And then real estate excise taxes coming from the buying and selling of homes, that's the light blue at 15%. So this is just to look at our tax revenue by fund and percentage. So just honing in on the general fund revenues for 2023, we're looking at just over $20 million in general fund revenues. We are estimating about 1.5 million more in 2022 than is currently budgeted. The budget amendment that was just approved tonight will include some of those funds, including some grants and some interfund transfers. This again does include all the managerial general fund, the reserve permanent pandemic recovery funds. Something to note, the intergovernmental is actually looking like it's going to increase or decrease from 2022 to 2023. The largest portion of that was from the ARPA funds we received in 2022 that we obviously won't be receiving in 2023 any more of those. And then just of note, as I mentioned, that taxes are about 50% of the total citywide revenues. They actually make up 73% of the general fund. So it's a large portion of the general fund. Looking at our 2023 citywide expenditures. This is by department. As you can see, Public Works makes up about 31%. This is in dark blue. A lot of that is actually capital. A lot of capital projects we do are Public Works projects. And then the Park and Rec is the light blue. It makes up 14%. That used to be part of the Public Works, is now separated out, and a lot of that is also capital. And then we have the general government in the green. That includes our debt, our interfund transfers, legal and community. And then law enforcement is the yellow, which is approximately 24%. When we look at citywide expenditures for 2023, this is by type. So you can see that our estimated expenditures are down in 2022 from budgeted. We're looking at nearly $8 million decrease from the budget to what we expect to spend. Nearly $2 million of that is in wages and benefits due to vacancies. And then the citywide expenditures by type, wages and benefits are approximately 42% of the total expenditures. And then capital and services both come in about 18% of the total expenditures citywide. This is looking at our general fund, general operating fund expenditures comparison by department. So looking from 22 to 23, the 21 to 22 increase was approximately 21%, and then the increase from 22 to 23 is approximately 18%. Some of the things that are made up here, the non-rep market rate study, it is built in at the 60% or 60th percentile years in position. And the cost of living, although historically the city has approved a COLA at 90% of CPIW for the non-reps, that would have been 8.6%. With the additional increases due to the implementation of the market rate study, a 6% COLA has been recommended. We also added that the contracted rates, the guild commissioned are in at 3% and the guild non-commissioned are at 4% for their contracts. The Teamsters does not currently include an increase as they're under negotiation now. And then estimated 2022 expenditures, nearly $2.5 million less than the 2022 budgeted, as I mentioned, partially due to the inability to fill the vacant positions. I also showed this by type, and as you can see, wages and benefits are 69% of the general fund. Looking at the actual staffing recommendations made, I did break these down by quarter, and that correlates with the charts. So the first chart shows the majority of the expenditures beginning in Q1, as those are for the market rate study and the cost of living, but those expenditures do actually occur equally throughout the year, but we show them as Q1. So Q1 is the highest dollar amount. Q1 also includes the part-time senior planner to full-time planner. Q2 includes the public works analyst, IT applications analyst, grant writer, and also the park seasonals are anticipated to be higher than. And majority, the reason for that is we're likely unable to actually get somebody in position before Q2. Otherwise, we would like to get them in sooner to get things rolling, but that will actually save us some dollars as well. And then in Q4, we have the public workshop quartermaster, and then the optional promotion of a senior planner to lead are also budgeted there. Additionally, we have the interns that are available to hire Q1, but will be funded from department savings, and then the additional police officer FTEs if officers are available. And then I just show what the positions proposed are by fund. As you can see 50% is coming from the general fund, 14% from street, 16% stormwater. The permit fund, that's they're budgeted elsewhere and then paid back into the by permit revenues for permit related work. And then the pandemic recovery, that is the grant writer. We have that one built in there.
Excuse me, Barb.
Yep.
I don't know who this question is actually for. Q1, Q2, Q3, these different positions are in those. When is the process for those going to be started with the constraints we're having on hiring?
Likely January 1.
So we're gonna put them all out in January 1, or are we gonna?
All of
And
the
then only
Q2.
hire in Q4 for one of them?
All of the Q2 will come out Q1. So
Okay.
as soon as we could actually start the process as soon as the budget's passed, as we know we're not going to anticipate actually getting them hired, but we don't want to hire them prior to that. If they're budgeted that way, we will have some savings, so it won't be that big an issue. But the Q4, I assume that will be started mid-year.
Okay, thank you.
So in response to council's questions on when I wanted to see these folks brought in, so you have that on the slide by the quarters, and I would absolutely envision us announcing the quarter prior to get that process going. And just so the council understands the staff, the grant writer position, what we've decided upon is we're going to put out an ask for a grant writer who's a technical writer with maybe some media skills, right? Because that question becomes, do we have enough full-time work for a grant writer? Maybe not, but do we have enough work for someone who has some media skills who could do both grant writing and communication communications for the city that would then help us bring that in-house instead of the current contract we have. So my thought process is we put out the ask, see if that unicorn type person is out there. And if we get someone qualified within that grant writer and media specialist sort of qualifications, then we'll hire that person. If we don't, then we'll step back and see if we need to go another route.
We do an FTE versus contract.
Exactly. But it would allow us to maybe get rid of our current communications contract and combine it with that person.
What's the amount of our current media communications contract?
Or 5,500 a month. So for Marine and Army math, about 66,000 a year. So I think that we could maybe get efficient with that, and having someone actually here on staff doing that media would, I think we'd get a lot better. So, but we'll see if that person's out there. So,
Thank you.
you bet. Barb.
This is just taking a look at our org chart. It is color coded by timing. So you have the lighter green, which is the 2023 proposed for the full year. The darker green, which is second quarter, and then the orange is fourth quarter. This is just looking at your recommended budget summary, items that were included into the budget recommendations. Some of these have changed per council questions previously. Some of the covers and things were looked at, and some less expensive models were found and included. Additionally, the shop quartermaster supplies was decreased. Since we're not hiring until late year, we will look at what we can save along the way in order to bring that position into full capacity. You can see that the public works, that is the largest proportionate share of the items proposed. Some of these items might change if priorities change, then some of the specific items listed may also change within the fund and the department. The next portion is the darker blue, which is 33%, and that is sewer. So those are placeholders for sewer assumption. And so we have those listed in there as sewer. This is taking a look at our general fund forecasted ending balance. I did want to make note that the savings that we had through the year and the savings that were implemented based on a change in cost of living increase have increased our overall 2028 forecasted ending balance to just over $5 million. So looking at the cost of living change was approximately $156,000 in year one. And obviously that is compounded over multiple years. The general fund portion of that was $115,000. There was also a small error in the calculation spreadsheet that increased the amount that we were showing on it, about $70,000 to general fund. So that was a total of $185,000 change in the expenditures for the general fund year one, and then compounded over those years. And then also, as I mentioned previously, our expenditures are nearly $2 million lower, and our revenues are nearly the same increased. So that is where the majority of the change come from, is just moving things out. So the vacancies, vacant positions, that sort of thing, as we always say, can we move it till next year? This is why it pushes everything out so that you have a better fund balance at the end. As I mentioned, the 2023 beginning balance has increased nearly $4 million based on the increased revenues, which does include the transfer of the pandemic recovery funds. So I did the allocation in the last budget amendment to move those funds to the fund that is actually spending the money. So where the people are, their FTE is located versus just annually transferring money as it went. So transfer all the funding for those positions for those 2 years. Looking at the street fund proposed budget, again, this does not include any transportation benefit district sales tax assumptions. The revenue we're looking at is 3.2 million, property tax 28%. The motor vehicle fuel tax has been increasing since COVID as more people are back on the road, but we don't forecast a continued increase more than about 1% per year. And that is the per capita based state shared revenue on gallons sold, not price. And then we have the garbage utility tax, which has been going into the street fund and is steadily increasing. Expenditures, we're looking at 3.4 million. Again, this does include the additional public works analyst and the shop quartermaster in Q4. We're continuing the pavement preservation program, the striping programs. And then the expenditures by type just show that about 50% of the wages and benefits take up the expenditure. So that's about $1.7 million in the street fund. Surface water, looking at sort of the same things. The current budget Interfund transfers is a very large portion of revenues and expenditures. These are actually transfers from the operating fund into the debt service fund and the capital fund. And then there's actually some revenue transfers in from permit funds for permit related work. So storage drainage fees, we're looking at nearly 4.4 million. That includes the 3% increase that's in the new rate schedule and a 1% increase in residential units. And then the ending fund balance, we're looking at 4.9 million, and about 3.9 of that is in the capital fund. Wage and benefits are about 38% of the stormwater fund, as a majority of it is the expenditures here are capital related. I'm sorry, interfund related, not capital related. And then in our forecast there, it does include some capital projects based on our CIP. So there are a number of stormwater capital projects built into that funding model. And this is just, again, a total look at our 2023 capital project budget summary. This has not changed. Total capital projects budgeted in 2023 are 8.1 million. There are about $4 million more in projects that, if the grant funding is confirmed, then they will be added to the budget as an amendment. And then this is just the remaining of the capital projects. As I mentioned, the TBD is not included in this budget, but I did want to just again note that if the vote is approved, the council has directed staff to set aside the first $500,000 per year to go towards additional pavement preservation, and then additional funding will go to these prioritized projects for these two things. And that is all I have at this time.
I've emailed all of the council this presentation, so you guys can take a look at it.
Okay, do we have any questions for staff or myself?
I don't know that I have any questions. I do want to say thank you, Barb, for a presentation. I do recognize that many of the things that we discussed in previous budget discussions in terms of some of the positions, all of those things that I can specifically recall, it looked like they've been addressed. And I'm appreciative of that and the impact that it's had on the future outlook of the budget. But there's really a singular chart that with the fund balance and the lines that really tells the tale. And while we often focus on the descending line, the slope to the right, that's not the problem with that chart that needs to be addressed. The problem for me continues to be the vertical bars. You know, consecutively each year, there are simply expenditures that exceed revenues. And while I don't question the expenditures, they're obviously necessary. In fact, there's many more expenditures that are needed when we talk about maintaining our infrastructure, our sidewalks, our roads. The challenge is, how do we get to increasing the revenue on the other side? So I would hope that the conversation continues. And how do we improve? How do we increase revenues coming into the city, be it through our economic development efforts, our continued efforts with the sewer district, and what that means in our future, the grant writer position, continuing to go out and go to DC and work with our representatives to look for funding opportunities and taking all of those comprehensive approaches. I hope all of those things continue so that we can reverse that trend and get to a point where we at least balance revenues and expenditures, if not have a net revenue of surplus of revenue available for additional expenditures.
Barb, I got one more question. I don't need an answer tonight, but if you could send us this request on your chart of funds, we have what I think we term constrained funds. Is that true?
Restricted funds?
Yeah, restricted funds, that's better. Restricted funds. Could you send us which funds are restricted and why they're restricted or what the
Sure.
restrictions are? I don't need that tonight. This is a first reading, so I just want to be, we've been doing this for years and for some reason I lose track of which ones are restricted, which ones aren't.
And if it's not already, I believe there is a sort of a fund breakdown on our website that goes through a fund explanation saying which is restricted, which are not. It probably needs to be updated with some of the additional funds that we have created for capital projects, but I will get that updated and I will send that out to you.
Thank you.
Any other comments for Barb, questions? Okay, so with that, I'm opening for public comments, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so with that, let's open the floor for public comments on just this subject. Is there anyone who wishes to provide public comments on the budget tonight? Anybody online?
Don't see anybody yet. So again, anybody online, this is the public comment time for ordinance 1150, the public hearing for the 2023 budget. So if you'd like to speak, please raise your hand in Zoom so I can let you in. Don't see anybody.
Anyone in the audience? Okay, so, but I'm going to keep the public comments portion open. I'm not closing it, correct?
No, you close the public hearing and we will open a new one.
Yeah.
The next time.
This requires 2 hearings.
Okay, good. So with that, we'll go ahead and close the public comments portion of the hearing. Barb, do you have any further comments?
I do not. I
Okay.
appreciate all of the input that council has given and that staff and the mayor have made.
All right, and so with that, we will continue this hearing, correct?
No, you need to approve the first reading of budget ordinance 1150.
Okay, can I get a motion for that?
I move to approve the first reading of 2023 budget ordinance number 1150.
Second.
Okay, do we have any discussion on the motion?
Second was Councilmember Tatchett.
Yes, correct.
So what is the reading? What is, so what are we approving? Are we moving it to the next? It's not agreeing to the content of it. We're just agreeing to move it to the next hearing.
Yes.
Okay.
Approving the budget presented. Comment.
Thank you.
Any other discussion, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, perfect. Appreciate everybody's work on that. So let's move to closed record hearing, and I'm gonna look for a lot of guidance on this one because it's a, I want to make sure we do this correct. So Christie, go ahead.
I'll go ahead and share my screen here, and the city attorney want to have a information about the closed record hearing.
All right, a closed record hearing, let me just talk about that for a second. To the public, this is an opportunity for you to address the city council tonight on the issues of compliance with the procedural requirements or the merits of the site-specific rezone application made by JMI Holdings LLC. By addressing the factors in Lake Stevens Municipal Code Section 14.16C.090G titled Decision Criteria against the findings, conclusions, and recommendations made by the hearing examiner. Speakers may reference any of the exhibits in the record made before the hearing examiner or to any of the sworn testimony of witnesses testifying before the hearing examiner in support of their arguments that are comments to make to the council tonight. Evidence, however, outside the record of the hearing examiner cannot be considered by the city council. No new witness statements, pictures, historical records, studies, or other documents that were not submitted in evidence to the hearing examiner can be given or presented to the city council at this closed record public hearing. And finally, in addition to the section of the municipal code I cited, anyone giving public comment may give reference to any statute, code provision, or other legal requirement they believe supports their comments or their position on the merits of the rezone request or compliance with the procedural requirements for a site-specific rezone.
Okay. So are we doing Christie next?
Yeah, we can start with the staff report.
Okay.
And then you can open it up, public hearing up, to give the applicant an opportunity to say something, and then any other
Okay.
citizen.
Okay, Christie, you have.
I have a
Well-
point of order. It says in our packet that this is no public comment, a closed public hearing.
No, it's a closed record.
I mean, sorry, closed record hearing, no public comment is what it says.
So as I tried to explain, closed record means the record be made before the hearing examiner is the only evidence that can be commented on. When people address the council, they can't bring in new stuff.
He's just saying our pamphlet says no public comment. That's all he's saying.
So that's incorrect.
Anyone can put anything they want in the record, right?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
The sheet is wrong.
Okay.
You just explained it.
Okay. Christie.
Okay, well, thank you. With that said, thank you, City Attorney. I'm Christy Schmidt, Senior Planner. I would like to point out that this item, the site-specific rezone, was before you on October 11th. This hearing was actually continued to no date sooner than November 8th, which is this evening. This was based on the fact that there was a reconsideration filed on October 6th. That reconsideration had a due date of comments for October 20th. The hearing examiner did issue a decision on that, and that was yesterday afternoon. So that is why within your packet yesterday, you did receive an amendment. I'd like to hold up the memo. So within your packet, you have a memorandum that summarizes the hearing examiner's reconsideration decision, and that summary was for denial. The reconsideration request was based on procedural error, environmental, traffic impacts, and the rezone itself. The hearing examiner ruled that the reconsideration was denied and that his original decision for the approval of the subdivision and the variance stands, as well as the approval for the rezone to the city council for recommendation of approval for consideration also stands. So your packet was updated, so you received all that information for the closed record hearing this evening. I have kept my presentation brief due to the fact that you have a very large agenda this evening. I would like to point out that the application and the site information still stays the same since your packet in October 11th. Here, taking a look up on the screen, you can see a picture of the site that's before you for the site-specific rezone. It's approximately 11 acres. It was annexed into the city in 2021. I believe that was in August. The application itself, it was a combined application for a subdivision application, a variance, along with a rezone. So they are packaged and processed together in a consolidated review. The hearing examiner makes the approval decision for the plat and also for the variance. He makes a recommendation to the city council, who makes the final decision on the rezone, which is before you here this evening. The rezone itself is exempt from SEPA because the land use action on that is reviewed and considered under the environmental documentation of the comprehensive plan when that is adopted by the city council. The public hearing for the project was held back on September 6th. The comp plan designation for the site is medium density residential. There's no change proposed for this for a site-specific rezone. The current zoning is currently R6. The proposed zoning is R8, R12. And in the land use table in the city's municipal code, the R8, R12 zone is an approved implementing zone of the medium density land use designation. So as you can see here on the map, here we go. Here's the color change. The site currently is zoned R6. The proposal is to change it to orange, which would correspond to the properties to the north, which is R8 and R12. The comprehensive use designation for the area, or for the site, excuse me, it's covered up on my screen here, is remaining the same. The proposed density that the applicant is proposing is 36 lots, for the subdivision. The site does have wetlands and streams on site. Traffic impacts was assessed through the rezone application and the plat. To summarize the findings in the hearing examiner's recommendation, that the rezone does meet the rezone criteria is outlined, and I'll briefly recap those for you. It does meet the public notice and SEPA requirements have been met. The full decision of the hearing examiner is contained within your packet this evening. Public notification was also met, and it was also distributed for this public hearing, which was continued from October 11th. So going in briefly, just to recap, for the council and the general public, the rezone decision criteria is that the site-specific rezone does conform to the city's adopted comprehensive plan. It's in compliance with GMA. It does advance the public health and safety and welfare, and the amendment is consistent to fulfill the city's residential population need based on our residential capacity requirements for the city. The fifth criteria is that there's adequate area to develop for the zoning district. It's not materially detrimental, and there's adequate infrastructure. I would like to point out that the Lake Stevens Sewer District did annex the site back in March 2022, earlier this year. The environmental impacts have been mitigated, and the amendment complies with the zoning regulations. And with that, I just quickly summarized it. I'll open it up for questions for the city council in discussion.
Do we have any questions for staff?
First of all, Christy, would you put up the picture of the map that shows the trees?
Oh, certainly.
Please, thank you.
Sure. We'll go back to the aerial. Here we go.
So I might have several questions. Okay.
Sure.
Could be. So would this be affordable housing, something we're desperately in lack of in Lake Stevens? How would it impact our infrastructure if we increase the number of houses per acre? How would it impact our roads and sidewalks? How would it impact our citizens regarding taxes? Has this work been included in our budget? That's a lot of questions. I should have given those to you ahead of time. Thank you to council members Jorstad and Peters Hagen for their mailings, giving us a better understanding of the HEART program. It tells us that Snohomish County, while not unique, has a serious lack of affordable housing. This is coupled with the lack of behavioral health services driven by extended isolation of COVID. Homelessness rate has been an increase of 36.6% in Snohomish County since 2015. So more houses might be good, you know, I understand that. But even so, existing low rent housing is being demolished more rapidly than anywhere else in the nation. Have we consulted the Conservation District on this increase from R2 to R8-12? As we suffered the smoke in the air last month and the impact of fires on our climate. I do want you to look at that map. Do you see the trees? It's all trees, like I do. I got in my car and I drove there and I looked at it. It's all trees. And can we find it will not impact the environment of Lake Stevens if we chop all those trees down? Will we be careful to save as many of those trees as we can? This is my question about increasing the number of houses per acre. Thank you so much for listening to me. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Did you want staff to address those particular questions now, or do you want me to hold until further questions?
You can answer that question.
Sure. Well, I'll tackle at least a couple of them initially. So, so as far as the affordable housing, the zoning currently is R6. So the increase to R8 and R12 that's currently proposed under the current proposal, my understanding based from the applicant is that they technically can achieve the same lot yield under the R6 as the R8 and R12. They're requesting the rezone for flexibility in site design so they can preserve the major portion of the site. So there's a large portion of the site that's actually going to be preserved and will be retained in NGPA. I could, if you want me to go to the preliminary plat, but that's probably a different item for discussion because tonight it's really just the rezone. So the preliminary subdivision application that the hearing examiner made his decision on and reconfirmed with the reconsideration has previously assessed the environmental impacts along with the traffic and sidewalk. And the applicant is required to construct, build, and also pay mitigation fees to offset those impacts. And then the environmental areas that are critical areas on site, those trees will be preserved. And in addition, they do have to meet the city's tree retention requirements. So not just only are they preserving trees on site, they're also planting and reestablishing additional trees on site. And I would encourage you to look at the hearing examiner's decision because it outlines and lists all those items and mitigation factors that would respond to your questions. Mhm.
Any other questions for staff? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and open the floor for public comments. And I will open first of all to online as Chrissy.
Excuse me, I did have one correction I wanted to point out. In the ordinance 1146 at the end, the hearing date does need to be updated to November 8th. So I would like to point that out.
Okay. Is there anyone online wishing to provide comments?
Maybe we should have the applicant first.
Is the applicant online? I don't.
Let me look and see if they're here.
Who's the adults?
It would be Rochelle Smith with Land Pro Development.
No. I
Let me
have
see. David Toyer,
Mark, Shelley.
Mark Philwalk.
Yeah.
Yes, he would be the representative then.
Okay, hold on.
So you have how many people online who wish to provide comment?
None, but Mark might be the applicant representative, so I'm bringing him in.
Does he wish to speak?
I won't know until I bring him in, so he's coming in right now. Mark, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Did you want to make a comment on this?
No, thank you, council, for considering this tonight. And I don't think we need to make any additional comments at this time.
Okay.
Thank
Do we have
you.
anybody else online who wants to provide comment?
No.
Okay, so with that, I do have one person in the audience, Annette Gamble Olson, if you would approach the microphone. Say your name and address.
Annette Gamble Olson, 17209 123rd Avenue Northeast, Arlington. 98223. So my first question is the hearing examiner. I received a schedule from Jenny Fenrich that said that the hearing examiner was supposed to deliver their decision on the 4th of November. He did not. Is there any repercussions to the hearing examiner or to this case for him not delivering on time his decision?
So Annette, we won't answer any questions that you.
Oh, you won't? Oh,
No, we won't.
well, that's one of them.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
just as
okay.
part of the procedure.
Yeah. Okay, so can we bring up the same picture that you had up earlier with all the trees?
Certainly, I think it's up. It just has, there we go. The
Christy, can you-
clerk is changing it.
You'll need to share it again,
Okay.
Christy. I'm sorry.
Perfect. Here we go. There we go.
So as far as the rezone goes, all of the R8 to 12 is on the far side, the north side of Machias Cutoff Road, which is that curved road that goes along the edge of the Heisen plat. And my parents' property is on the, from my direction, is on the east side, and Loretta Cussie's is on the west side of that development. And they each have one house on their property and it's all treated. So to rezone that 8 to 12, when all of the ones on that side of the Machias Cutoff Road would not be compatible with what's already there. That's one thing. And the native tree canopy that supports this owl in the wintertime, their nesting area, it's migratory, but it is protected by protected. The MBTA. It's a migratory bird protection act. It's not, endangered, but it is migratory and is protected by the government. So the development could only happen during non-nesting times. And if there are.
Annette, you have 20 seconds, Annette,
for-
20 seconds just to wrap
Okay,
up.
if there's evidence for the owl on Loretta's property and on my mother's, and the development is in the middle, there's no reason that they should not find that there's also habitation there.
Thank you,
I
Annette.
have more.
Thank you, Annette. Okay, with that, I'm going to go ahead and close public comments portion of the hearing. Is there any further comment by staff?
Yes, I would like to address Ms. Gamble's comment about the owl, and I'd like to point out to the audience and also to the city council that this issue was brought up during the hearing examiner process. All the documentation has been noted in the public record. It was heard and considered, and there is a habitat assessment that is required for the owl prior to construction. So this item has been addressed previously.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions for staff or deliberation amongst the council? Seeing none, hearing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and look for action by the council.
Move to approve ordinance number 1146, an ordinance of the city of Lake Stevens amending zoning for an undeveloped 11.22 acre parcel located off Machias Cutoff from R6 to R812 as part of the High C rezone.
Second. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Just get the second.
Councilor Frederick.
Correct. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
And any opposed? No. Okay, we have Councilmember Dickinson as one opposed. So with that, motion passes. And we'll move on to discussion item, draft ordinance for short-term rentals code amendment. David.
All right, thank you, Mayor Gailey. So we're here tonight in advance of a planned public hearing next week on November 15th. At your last work session on November 1st, council members had requested some specific revisions be made to the ordinance for short-term rentals. Staff has incorporated those changes into attachment 1 in your packet tonight. I would note, as pointed out by Councilman Member Daughtry, that there is one minor typo that still references a type 1 process down in subsection C1 of chapter 1444-064. So staff will clean that up in advance of the planned public hearing. So staff was wanting to get council member comments on any additional refinements needed to the ordinance in advance of the public hearing. And then also, as noted in the staff report, with the type 2 process, there is more time and effort involved and typically more cost incurred with the public noticing. The preliminary recommendation when this process was a type 1 process was for there to be a $200 initial fee for the short-term rental application. Staff wanted to get feedback from the council on whether that should be revised upward to account for the type 2 process, or if council members would like to keep that at the $200 fee that had been previously discussed. The majority of type 2 applications are in the $500 to $1,000 range. Staff wouldn't recommend going above $500, but wanted to get feedback from the council on that. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
So David, how much of staff's time would be accounted for with the $500 fee?
So there's, because when you do a type 2, I would estimate probably an extra hour and a half to 2 hours once you're doing your actual findings and just the time involved with probably, well, I would say probably more like 3 extra hours over a type 1.
And you also have to notice, so if you're in a high density area and there's 300 feet, I mean, you could be notifying, 50 neighbors. potentially.
Correct, yes. So there is costs involved with that as well.
Is that included in that fee structure?
That would be included within the fee structure. We roll those into the flat fee for land use applications.
David, do you have is there like a standard for type 2 applications that you follow? In terms of fees, get the fees.
So we have, as part of the adopted fee schedule, and I think as I noted in the staff report, we have type 2s that are $1,000. We have type 2s that are $500 to $600. So we tend to do it based on not just the type of the land use application, but also the effort that's involved. Obviously, there are some type 2s that don't require as detailed a staff report or the findings to be as detailed.
I would support defining the fee schedule in the same way that you define all other type 2 permit fee schedules and do that evaluation and increase the cost based on what the need is and what type of requirement is needed for your staff.
So David, I support your recommendation to adjust that to reflect the staff's time. So $500 is what staff's recommendation is and reflect the additional costs incurred to process that application.
Just to clear, oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Never mind.
Any more questions for David? Really?
Said everything last week.
Yeah, we did. You said everything for last year.
Well, then I guess I do have one little comment. I noticed that in the revised ordinance, there isn't, we had talked last week about a recommendation about when to revisit this. I noticed that's not in the ordinance, that's not in the staff report. I appreciate that. I think I would like to retain the flexibility to revisit that sooner than 2 years if needed. And I think that we can make that decision based on what sort of feedback we're getting. And but I do support revisiting it sooner than 2 years. So I appreciate that's not codified in this number.
Okay, great. So then the next time we revisit this is next Tuesday for a public hearing, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. So with that, I do want to hand out next week's agenda real quick. Make sure everyone's okay with it.
We were going to have a report from our code enforcement folks. Is there, seems to be kind of being skipped here. Is there some date that we're going to have that on the agenda?
Seen that in our planning meetings.
At the last meeting, it was request to push that out a couple of weeks since we were going to have busy agendas. So we'll be bringing that forward in the first meeting in December.
First meeting in
December. Is that okay? Okay.
What's gonna be in the first meeting? Oh,
Does the agenda look okay to everybody? Okay. So with that, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So to adjourn. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Appreciate everyone's. It's still.